audio. Alright, and record video. Alright, folks. What up, what up? Live
everybody.
Yo, what's going on, man? We're back for episode 2.
There you go. Check it out.
100 Years of Wealth, Unmarked Bills podcast. Here to, dissect some public topics today. Conversate on some things going on and, just have some interesting conversation.
Yeah. So what's hot now going on?
Shit, the thing that's ruffled my feathers in the last week is, your boy Kanye West.
Oh, man. Kanye.
White lives matter.
Yeah.
White lives matter. Obviously a controversial statement. Obviously, he's known to drum up controversy. But what do you think about that phrase by itself? What does that do for you?
Yeah, man. When I looked at it, when I first saw it, I don't know too much of the detail, but when I first caught it, first glimpse, I just think, oh man, he's just trying to stir up drama, like unnecessary drama, right?
Right.
I get that he's probably trying to bring a certain message across, but it's gonna have more of a negative effect. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I completely understand why people are so mad. It kind of bothered me too, just thinking about it, and again, I don't know the details, but
right.
Still, man, it's just like I could just see it not being a positive thing.
Yeah, hey, that's a good way to put it. I feel like the obvious, like that phrase is such like an obvious, like no shit, like we all know that
everybody matters.
Everyone's life matter, but making that statement in the country that we live in the world that we live in, you can't help but think it's just like a juxtaposition, I think is the word, but just basically taking an opposite stance to the Black Lives Matter thing. Yeah. It's interesting though, because like for me as like a black person, I always try to break that down and be like, what makes a black person take a stance that, like the majority of black people kind of see through the same lens, like at least in America, we're all kind of like living through a similar experience, even if we all have different upbringings and different direct experiences. Right. We kind of like know the context of what's gone on. So it's like it always makes me question like why some individuals seem to side with that perspective or like want to, give that perspective light. And I kind of feel like it's like this thing of like some black people are like bothered by the negative imagery of black people, right? Like they're bothered by the negative images that are put out of black people. So instead of seeing like, okay, hey, like rap music and thuggery is like one of the main images, obviously that's a negative image. And then you have other images and shit that like, may be positive, whether it's like sports or like some sort of positive political figure or like a positive acting figure, some sort of public presence. Yeah. But like the most dominant one, or at least the one that gets the most attention, is a lot of times like rap music, hip hop. And a lot of I feel like for many years there was like a good mix of like conscious music where it was like hip hop, it was like a positive like perspective, and then in the 80s or late 80s you have more like gangster music coming in, and like some of the gangster music back then was more like a portrayal. It'll show you like, hey, this is where I grew up and this is the life and the struggles that we dealt with. Mm-hmm. And it was more of like a struggle making it through type perspective. Now this shit's like and like embracing the full, it's almost like narco music. Like, well, I don't know well enough to speak on that, but like in the sense of like really glamorizing and really like honoring that shit. Like, yeah, we'll kill someone, or like, it's really changed. But I feel like some black people can't. They get so like caught up in the way that other people view that they are like, they don't want to be viewed that way. So they like take a stance against their own people, and they're like, yeah, that thuggery, that, and like, you guys are so terrible for that. And I'm just like, bro, like, you're buying into the white stereotypes that they're selling us. Not white, but like the conservative, racist media. You're buying into that. Like, if you think that the entirety of black culture is the most negative perspectives, then I feel like you've been sold some bullshit. You bought into it. So I feel like his response to side with that is his internal thing, where he has like some sort of issue with that faction of black culture, because the reality of it is like the things that he said, the things that like his friend Candace Owens were saying, it just screams of like, just, I don't want to say self-hate, because I don't think he's like, I have a problem with my skin color. I think he has a problem with the projection of black people, and instead of taking it up with like the media, like, hey, why are you guys more focused on this type of rap as opposed to this type of rap? He's like, you guys are, you know, the problem is black culture. And I'm like, bro, you're getting it wrong, you know, and all you're doing is supporting racists that will, you know, like Fox News. He was on fucking Tucker Carlson the other day, bro. Like, yeah, I'm like, dude, have you ever heard Tucker Carlson speak? But
yeah. Let me ask you this. I did hear a couple YouTubers about that briefly. They were saying, you know, like, he wore that to get more in the limelight again, to kind of, you know, maybe promote something else on the side. You know, like, he's doing it just to get attention, to rough up the feathers, and just to promote something else, whether his music or his clothing line or whatever that is. So just wanted to get your thoughts of, like, can there be like a subliminal message behind that?
Like a subliminal message, like in some way, shape, or form, like it's a good message, or like he's
just trying. I guess not a subliminal message. I guess just kind of, you know, bring all the attention on him.
Alternative motive.
Yeah, Yeah, exactly.
Definitely. Like I feel like there, you know, usually when it's kind of like with Trump, you know, almost like he would say something crazy and then, you know, like it was intended to create the reaction that it got, you know. So I think with Kanye, yes, that could be part of it, but it's like there's other ways to create controversy without, like, you know, stepping on like one of the most, without like dabbling in like racial sensitivities and like things that are just true, you know. So it's like if you're that desperate for attention that you would, you know, do something that like could have a negative impact on your people, you know, minorities, people, you know what I mean? Like you're supporting white ideologies. That's like the whole thing. White lives matter, right? No shit. But Black Lives Matter was in a response to unarmed black people getting killed on video numerous amounts of times, and then the person that did it not serving some sort of justice. There was a direct thing that was going on, and it had been going on throughout, you know, the history of this country. And not to say it didn't happen to other people or it doesn't happen to other people, but this was like a direct thing that was going on, and then a statement that came from that, right? So like the White Lives Matter thing, it's like, yes, there's poor white people in this country that have probably been disenfranchised, that haven't enjoyed the benefits, or the, you know, they don't sense that they don't feel like they have some sort of white privilege, right? Because they're just working class, or maybe like poverty, you know, whatever. They're not seeing things from the perspective of like, I'm a successful white person and my whiteness has got me somewhere, you know? So I totally get that. I just don't think there's been like an overt public display of those people being treated as less than, whether there's like, whether it's legislation keeping them like from doing certain things, or like police having you know, so many encounters where the percentages of a black person being shot by a cop are like 3 times as much as another individual. But I will say that those people that are like, you know, lower income, poverty, disenfranchised, don't really have like any say in the public system. I'm sure that they experience abuse from like police, and, you know, it's that's the type of shit that happens. I don't think always like abuse from like the governmental powers is solely based on race. A lot of it, like, your finances can sometimes move you out of those situations because you have legal representation and shit like that. So a lot of people deal with the things, but I think that like if you want to deal with those topics, deal with them. Like, talk about that shit. Like, figure out a way to bring those to light in a way that, you know, isn't combative to another person's step forward. It's more of like, hey, look, like, all right, like, I see you guys doing that. Hey, you know what? We're gonna bring light to this too. Not like a combative, like, you know.
I mean, especially at these times where like you hear the concept, the topic of race push everywhere, right? So instead of trying to diffuse the issue, he just kind of escalate even more to even give the media more fuel to just talk about that and bring separation among people.
Exactly.
You know, so like, yeah, he's definitely not helping that. I can see if he was more focused on maybe the organization of Black Lives Matter, because there's some topics about that where, you know, about how they ran it more, but not the actual concept of it itself. Then that can make sense, right?
For sure.
I get that part, but yeah, he just did it all wrong, you know. So
and that's a great perspective, because I feel like and like I'm the guy that's on YouTube arguing in the comments with Fox News people. I get off
That's
on that.
funny.
I'm like, I'm gonna fucking tell you, fucking Jack and Cincinnati. But like I've done that shit for years. Like I swear those people must know me and shit. But a lot of those people don't at least come to that basic conclusion. Like, hey, look, I don't really know exactly how great Black Lives Matter as an organization was like running it. If there was some shady people that did something incorrectly, I don't fucking know. All I know is that the statement represented a reaction from a large population of people saying this, and it wasn't just black people. It was a lot of people in agreement with that. But a lot of those, conservative right-wing people are so simple with it, where it's just like, hey, like, I heard this about Black Lives Matter. I heard that there was some sort of fraud, and that's enough for them, as opposed to kind of breaking it down. Like, I don't really know exactly what it was, like I've heard something.
Yeah.
But like, I know that there are nonprofit organizations that are allowed to own a property. You could own a property. Your CEO could stay there. Maybe the CEO, but that's enough when it's like an organization like this. It's enough to like put like a black eye on it, and then now you have to explain your way out of it.
Yeah.
So, like, whoever's in the back of it, you have to be more... Unless it's just all a smear campaign, you have to be very sensitive about your steps, because you already know that it could be taken out of context. But it could be just some straight-up fraud. Someone was taking funds and misusing them. But I'm like, I just don't know. But it's a real easy, like, thing for people to use to discredit the whole movement,
Exactly. Instead of focusing on that one topic or the organization itself, they just put it all under the umbrella of Black Lives Matter, and they just kind of shit on that, basically.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Like the chick that was sitting there with Kanye, Candace Owens, she's now created a documentary where she's just going after the whole thing and like, trying to take down the Black Lives Matter concept. And I'm just like, during the, like, she's talking about like they filed their tax returns, and there was I don't know the exact number, but it was like there was like $200,000 given to escorts, right? And I'm just like, escorts. I'm like, that sounds crazy. And I'm like, so they decided to write that on. They decided to put it on their taxes, but like that's enough for a lot of people. Like when I first heard it, I'm like, that's crazy. Why would they do that? And then like as I watched a little bit further, it's like what it seems like is that some of the funds went to maybe like. To support sex workers, transgender, you know what I mean? Like, but for the conservative population, if you hear something like that, it sounds like you're fucking supporting like demonic, fucking evil, like, and it's like they're just trying to like further discredit it. When I look at it after getting that further information, I'm like, yeah, I'm sure like within like if you're gonna give $2 million to let's just say help, right? Like, hey, I'm giving $2 million to the city of Los Angeles to help. They're probably going to divvy out fucking money to gang intervention. They're going to divvy out money to fucking help, the community that's been affected with AIDS. They're going to help out the gay community. They're going to, you know what I mean? Like, so, but that's enough information right there to really like discredit their operation with some people, and it just creates this thing where I always say it's hard. You can't scream loud enough to explain your point to everybody and shit. So it's like some people will never hear the full justification or clarity on it. It'll be enough to hear that one blurb, and it'll further support their voting decisions, their their perspectives on different people, and they'll go on and tell someone else, oh yeah, did you hear that the Black Lives Matter, they they bought escorts with some of that money, and it's like shit, but some people just have like a whole campaign to discredit certain things, and I'm like, hey, look.
And again, I look at it again, even if it was true, hypothetically say it was true, again, Candace Owens should use the verbiage like, hey, I'm nothing against the whole topic of Black Lives Matter. It's support the concept. It's just the organization. I'm looking into more.
Exactly.
Again, you have to make it very clear. Instead, you put it all together, and now you're putting hate on the whole thing.
That would be a more like authentic way to
correct.
approach
Yeah,
it.
clarify what you mean. Just just don't generalize it. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, man.
But
that's not modern media today. It's like you either fucking I won't say all, but like I see more and more that the perspective is really just take a hard stance on something. But I feel like Kanye and Candace Owens and that whole like right wing type of shit. That's like beyond just like taking a hard stance. That's like
I feel like for media, man, either left or right, man, it's either one side. I feel like they can't meet in the middle. You know what I mean? Like
for sure,
it just sucks, man. But so
it's crazy.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this on that topic. So like, Kanye, he's sick though, right? Like I think of him in like a creative. I don't even like saying positive shit about people that I think are like fucking doing like negative shit, like overall, right? But like to be honest, I think he's very, very intelligent.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, but that doesn't mean that like you fucking can be, you know, you're tipping your scale, bro. You might be like genius 50% or 49%, but 51% is, you know, you're acting like an ass and you're unhinged and shit. But I think he's very creative. I think he's, you know, he comes up with dope shit. I like the way he kind of deals with these like major corporations like Adidas that are really like profiting greatly off of just his style, you know, the things that he felt, his convictions, because it's something that builds up over years, right? Like he hasn't done enough, like in the negative sense, it could be arguable, but he hasn't done something that's gotten him completely canceled, right? Like where it's like it's not valuable to work with him, you know what I mean? Like it's still more valuable to work with him than it, you know, just because. But I don't know how this will go, but what do you think about that? Like if you're an entity and you're like, hey, look, like I don't really like what he's saying, but we can like the Gap, right? Like we can take our shit from being on the brink of like going away to being like the cultural fucking cool shit right now. Profit a couple billion.
Yeah, man, that's a tough one right there, man. Right? You stick with your morals, or you look at it from a business standpoint. What's good business, right? So that's definitely all subjective, man. It's not definitely not an easy answer to come up with. Yeah, man. I wish I could easily just answer that for you, but
there's layers to that shit.
Yeah, there's a few layers to that one, man. Because at the end of the day, you got a business. You know, you have to really choose to what your beliefs are, and that could be anything. That could be just content, or it could be anything, religious beliefs or political, anything like that. So where do you draw the stand and just kind of like, you know, not focus on the money side of things, but. Yeah, man, that's definitely hard. I mean, it's definitely not easy. So, to give you a straight answer, I don't know. I don't know. If I was a business owner, it'd be hard, man, because, you know, as a pure business owner, man, unless he's doing something like, I don't know, something like to really damage my own business, or he just doesn't damage himself really that bad to make my business even look worse, then I could see. But like I said, like you just said, like, you know, he's done what he's done. He put himself in a bad situation. But like I said, there's still going to be people out there that know that he's still like a cash cow, right? He's still gonna bring, you know, business or kind of have a good influence on businesses to a certain degree, right? I think it's gonna affect more of these larger, like you know, like Adidas and things like that really have to make that decision of what they want to do. But at the same time, man, they got shareholders to worry about, so you know they have to think about it too. Like, okay, well,
they can't be too moral driven.
Unfortunately not, man. They're a business, so you know. So.
Yeah, I hear you. I feel like that's a tough decision because like. You know, when I think about that, I ask myself that question. I'm like, shit, would I... Because, like, all right, so I watched this podcast. You may have watched it too, but it's called No Jumper. And, you know, I'm a commenter. I'll talk some shit. I'll say what I like and don't like. And I feel like that's just kind of like participating, you know? But once again, in the comment section, you can only scream so loud. They don't give a shit what you're saying. They're like, oh...
They just ignore you?
Yeah, they're like, more comments, cool. That's all we're here for. But, like, AD, he's a guy on No Jumper... And he was commenting on the Kanye shit. And he's black, obviously. And he didn't really go hard on Kanye. It's kind of like, you know, they kind of like give him a pass to a certain degree. He's like, yeah, he said, you know, he's like, yeah, that shit was crazy. But then he released this dope documentary. And I was like watching that shit right now just to kind of see what the fuck's going on. And I, you know, in the comments, I'm like, dude, these fools go so easy on him, you know? And they're just like passive to any bullshit. And I'm like, I can understand that. Because, like, you're looking at it from an opportunistic standpoint. You don't want to cut off your potential relationship, especially with someone so fucking sensitive, right? Like, if you make a comment on Kanye and you have some sort of public platform, he's going to fucking put you on a shit list. And he's going to try to either drag you through the mud. He's like Trump in that sense. He's going to look at that in a very, like, art of war sense. You know what I mean? Like, okay, like, I'm going to use you as an example to make sure other people never fucking want to question me and shit, you know? So it's like, what if that's your fear? That's one thing, but then also just the fear of not being able to like benefit from like a relationship with that person. I think is like what a lot of people do, and how they respond. They're like, is it more valuable for me to stand up and like say like an opinion about him that's negative if I potentially would want to work with him? Or is it better just for me to fucking like, you know, pacify him to a certain degree and like you know, like not really address it. So I think that
Just kind of keep it neutral.
keep it neutral, you know. I think that like you weigh that out in the sense, and when I think about that from my perspective, like it makes me think of like if there was truly like an ability or like some like potential for a relationship, I'm like looking at it from the perspective of like my family more so than me, you know, like like do I play a game and do like a you know, create a relationship with someone that I don't agree with just for the financial outcome? Fucking probably, you know, like as long as it's not like and I think the difference is with Kanye is like he's not fucking Donald Trump, right? Like I think it would be a harder thing with Donald Trump because I feel like he's just like a fucking, you know, like Donald Trump doesn't get passed off as like a crazy artist and shit. You know, Kanye could say a bunch of crazy shit and then a year later be like, you know, like laugh it off and then create some dope shoes and people are like, whatever, just a crazy artist and shit, you know?
Well, they consider him somewhat erratic, right? Behavior too, so they can kind of give him a pass.
You could justify it. You're like, oh shit, you know?
Just Kanye being Kanye.
Just Kanye being Kanye. Yeah, no, for sure. So I think that that's like the difference in that situation. I think it would be harder for me to fucking, you know, do something with like a Trump type person that to me has been like blatantly fucking like racist and just not for the people, you know? And he's in an actual public legislation position, not now, but you know what I mean, like he
will be probably in the future,
possibly, you know, or supporting him, supporting him now, like, or doing something with him, kind of like what's the word people use, it like normalizes him, you know, and normalizes the shit that he's done or said or whatever, you know. So I think that shit would be way harder than being like, all right, fucking Kanye is wild as fuck, like, you know what I mean, like I don't think that you'd have to weigh out though, like am I furthering fucking Hitler on his path and shit, you know? And obviously Kanye and Hitler are two different things, but like, dude, like...
That's a good example.
Yeah, no, I guess I always just relate it to someone that's like, you know, fucking people like that are eccentric and like fucking loud, draw attention, and people like that shit, you know? Like the weaker minds love that shit. They like all the comments that I'll see on fucking, on like YouTube, like that are reacting to like a video of him saying the craziest shit. Like I'm watching him on Fox News talk about shit to me. He sound like a 12-year-old. Like he's talking about like, yeah, you know, like and you know, like what did he say? Oh, Candace Owens, she's like the only one that supported me, and it's like that Donald Trump mentality, like whoever backed me up, you know, I don't care. Like if you back me up, then I'm with you. It's like you know what I mean? It's not like something of like true like respect for opinion. It's just like back me up. If you don't back me up, fuck you. I'm cutting you off and shit. But it was just like this thing where instead of talking about like, hey, you know what, the reason why I'm wearing the White Lives Matter shirt is because this and that, I feel like this says this and this is the thing that I'm standing here for. It went into some whole thing about how he gets attacked and this, it was just very selfish. I'm like, you don't give a fuck about white people. Like white people for one don't need your support. Like I think white people have been fine in this country, you know? If you were really standing up for some small segment of white people that are disenfranchised, you could do it in a whole different way. You know what I mean? Like, but you're not. What you're trying to do is make a statement so that people look at you and ask you what's up, and then you know, you piss people off that you don't like and that you don't fucking agree with and shit, you know? Meek Mill kind of said it best. It's like, you're a fucking nerd that's mad at the street niggas, you know? like seriously, like you've been probably bullied, you never really fit in with the street dudes, and not that you need to and shit. There's a bunch of people that just aren't street motherfuckers, and they don't feel like, you know, like I feel like I fuck all you gang members. It's like, nah, you should be able to have a balanced understanding of like different cultures within your culture or subcultures and shit. But if you've always been like this fucking like, people are going at me and you know all that shit, it's like I just see everything. I think he sees everything through like how I feel, and I feel like that sometimes for some people with religion, it could be part of that shit. Like, this is not a blanket statement about like Christians or whatever, but I think that some of it, and I think maybe being raised Christian and like maybe having some of these thoughts at a time in my life, it's like this like God complex and shit. Like you want to be adorned like Jesus was and shit, you know? Like I think that could be the thing with him, but that's just me fucking overanalyzing shit, you know? But it's like this thing of look at me, and like,
Yeah,
it just
yeah.
gets fucking exhausting, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem with it until it like plays into like public, like,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, especially when you're dealing with like sensitive topics, right? Like like you said, race. That's when it becomes a problem. And I get you want to stay in the light and the fame and all that stuff too, but there's other ways of doing it without touching on these sensitive topics. You know, when shit's going on in today's world with still race, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man. Like I said,
Dangerous
man,
world.
Kanye, man, being Kanye, right? So,
Yeah.
I
It is
don't know, man. Yeah.
Would you vote for him for president?
Oh yeah, yeah, no, man.
Yeah, but and just really,
That's another thing he wanted to do. Huh? He wanted to run for presidency. Huh?
yeah, well, he technically did. He was like a write-in ballot, or no, he ended up being a vice presidential candidate on someone else's card, But yeah, he's wild. But the other thing that was like crazy and shit, and this is kind of like just like the side effect of like someone with so much power and like notoriety and influence and shit saying crazy shit. It was like that girl Candace Owens. This wasn't what Kanye said, but Candace Owens said some shit about like, I'm not gonna quote her because I don't remember the exact statement, but it was something related to Brittany Gardner, the basketball player that's arrested. Like she should be arrested. Like some shit like that where I'm just like, these are the fucking black people that are having like the biggest platform in our country right now, and it's probably because they're saying terrible shit. There's a lot of other people that are more credible, but it's like sometimes the craziest shit just gets the look, and it's unfortunate that that's what's coming out, and it's backed by someone with billions of dollars. But anyway, that's it. I can go on all day for that shit. But at the end of the day,
we turned a 5-minute conversation into a 30-minute.
Yeah, dude. But honestly, one of the reasons why like I even fucking wanted to start podcasting was just really I got exhausted hearing like so many opinions out there that to me weren't getting enough of like a logical counter. There's no one literally breaking down why it's dangerous for a black person to be supporting like racist white ideologies and shit like that. But yeah, there's people are smart, you know what I mean? Like, and I think sometimes like I react harder to shit like that because there's like a subtle like distrust in humans where I'm just like, fuck, people are believing this shit, you know what I mean? Like, and maybe it's backed up by all the shit that went down with Trump for fucking 4 or 5 years where it's just like craziness and, like, I don't know, but hey, life goes on, Yeah,
it's true, man. I mean, like, I look on TV, just watching like different propositions come up, and you hear pros on one commercial for a proposition, and then you hear the negatives. Like, they're sharing it with you and sugarcoating everything why it's good or bad, and you just don't even know, right?
Right.
So that at the end of the day, you're confused as hell about this proposition. You have no idea whether it's going to be good for you or bad for you, or how much it's going to damage or be, like I said, be good.
Yeah.
So
100%.
yeah, man, that's the problem, with the media and just the people behind it, just like. They'll go hard and steer you in one direction, and like I said, make it sound like it's good, but yeah, it could be freaking evil for all we know. So
seriously, yeah, I know, and that's how I've been feeling too when I see these fucking propositions, because one part of it sounds good, and then I see the other fucking, the other ad, and I'm just like, wait a minute, so that's what's gonna, and I think that the problem is that we're not doing enough research on our own.
Yeah.
To really figure out the deep dive on it. We're looking at the main points, and usually these bills or these laws have like so much other shit laid into it, and they just kind of present the shit that is hot button,
Yeah, and whoever has the deeper pockets on that proposition to like blast the commercials out more and more you see it, that's probably who's gonna win, right? Unfortunately, so
for sure.
I mean, I don't know too much going on in the LA mayor race, but I know between the two Democrats right now, I know like Caruso, I think he's like a billionaire. So he's spending a lot of money, from what I hear in the media, on the news, that really selling out, getting the commercials up there. So really trying to hype up his train and stuff like that too. Whether or not he's the best candidate, I don't know. You probably know more than I do because that's your town.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just an example of how much how deep your pockets are could really boost you to the top of a race, like a political race. So
for sure, yeah. No, honestly, I don't really know enough about like Caruso's like history. I know, or from what I hear, he was a Republican. He's kind of like leaned towards Democrat. I don't know, man. Like I think that the concept of Republican versus Democrat, it's not even like for me, it's not even like a real concept necessarily, because I don't even have the luxury to think from like a Republican perspective, because they've been so racist for so long, right? Like not I won't say like blatantly always, but like even from a young age, it was like as a 10-year-old and shit, it was like Bill Clinton, he's more down with black people than fucking George Bush and shit. And it wasn't just because fucking Bill Clinton played a fucking saxophone and shit. Alright, hold on real quick. Stop.
Oh, what happened?
You just said it stopped. Please. Movies. Max record tab.
Now, are you able to like filter that where you cut off at?
Okay. I'll just cut it out.
Oh, good.
Let's see if it goes again.
Like you were saying.
Yeah, thanks, brother. So yeah, no, you know, like growing up, it was like even at a young age, I had the perspective that like Bill Clinton at that time was less racist or not racist, and it's basic, right? As like a young person, you could say that like you're being played and shit, but like him going on Arsenio Hall, right? Him fucking playing the saxophone with like a black band on TV and shit, like that could all be a ploy, right? And it is a ploy, right? It's a way to get votes from that community. But like, if George Bush wasn't doing that shit, he was like, I don't give a fuck about their votes. You know, to be real honest with you, I'm gonna dive in hard on the other side. So when I talk about policing more, when I talk about fucking going hard on drugs, all that shit, it's basically, hey, white people, I'm gonna go hard on those things that you guys fear. You know, like, and it's clear, you know, at a young age and shit. You know, so even as you go forward, it's like, these like conservative like black, you know, analysts like Candace Owens and shit, it'll be like trying to convince you that the Republicans have your best interest at hand, and I'm just like, it's really not that hard, you know what I mean? Like fucking explain how you're not racist, or I'm not stupid, right? Like the more you side towards things that support a fucking white stereotypes and shit, the more you're gonna stand out as a fucking racist.
Yeah.
The more you go hard on fucking the others, like transgender and shit like that. And I know for some people it's not like it's more like, I think for some people it's religions based, you know, their viewpoint on like homosexuality or whatever, and I understand that. But I think that like when you're looking at it from a public standpoint and you're like legislating for the public, like who gives a fuck like what someone is or how they kind of like handle their individual self.
Right.
So like when you care too much about that, it also tells me that you probably care if I sag my pants or if I listen to rap music loud, or you're probably not wise enough to understand that gangster rap is a very tiny percentage of people. You know what I mean? Like you are biased and shit, and you haven't developed to the point of understanding that people are fucking people. To a certain degree, it's all natural, whether the person's choosing this shit or not. Don't hurt someone else and we're good, right? Like if you're not there yet, it tells me that you probably aren't there in a lot of areas, right? And I could be wrong. It could be for some people they're super advanced in other areas, but in certain things they just kind of old school or whatever, which is fine and shit. But I think from like a public standpoint, that's what I always kind of sense with Republicans. They're like fucking veering towards the past, trying to make things comfortable for a certain population, and not really, you know, not really like, while the Democrats, not perfect at all, right? Like fucking, I'm sure a lot of things I can complain about, but overall, they're leaning towards a more inclusive, like, hey, look, don't shit on this person. This person should have some basic rights. Fucking Gavin Newsom's even talking about like reparations and shit for like descendants of slaves and shit, you know? So, let's go to that topic actually. That's a great little transition.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you know that's my viewpoint a little bit on Kanye and all that shit. But yeah, dude, it's a good little transition. So fucking, I've been hearing more about that lately. At first, whenever I heard that shit, I thought it was just clickbait. You know, people.
Yeah, you're gonna have to educate me on this. I'm very ignorant when it comes to this part.
Yeah, so reparations, right? So like obviously there was slavery.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that part.
Slavery, and you know, there's different people that believe that there were already African descendants in the continent. You know, in North America. All right, and we're back. Yeah. So what were we talking about?
Reparations. You're providing you're providing me education about that.
Yeah, reparations, right? So reparations. Obviously, we all know that there was slavery.
Right.
Reparations is something that people have been calling for a long time related to slavery, or you know, black people and some other groups, obviously. But basically saying, hey, fucking give us something for that shit, you know, like give us something, whether it's financial, whether it's fucking, you know, some sort of like free schooling or some sort of payback credit. But like part of like, there's there's like a list of what reparations are, and it's
Right.
like some of it's financial, some of it's like restorative, some of it's legislative, part of it is an apology that America never has given and shit like that. So it's like I felt like for a long time as like a black person that was like a touchy subject to fucking really speak on, or feel like you're entitled to something like that. And I'm like, fuck that shit. Like I think that like definitely entitled to that. I think anyone that's been done wrong by like an institution is entitled to something, you know?
Right.
That's just one of the more public things that is well known, but like Japanese internment camps that happened in the 1950s or 40s or whatever it was, they were compensated later on. I don't know if the compensation was enough or justified what happened or made better what happened, but there was some sort of compensation. Same thing with Jewish people. There was compensation related to that. I think the German government paid shit. I think even America like gave funds to Jewish people. I could be wrong on that, but yeah. So supposedly the bill that's on the table from I don't know if Gavin Newsom put this in, but he pushed it forward to where supposedly by January 2023 there's supposed to be some exact like remedies, right? Like, so currently they did some mathematical equation, and they were like basically saying every person that is a descendant of a slave, at least one of your, like in one shape or form, grandmother, grandfather, great, whatever, would be like entitled to like $350,000.
Wow.
That's the current, I have to take some time to actually read the bill and whatever is going on, but that's like what all these YouTubers that I've watched have said, So I'm like, shit.
I got a dick from my family who,
yeah,
I could be.
Hey, you might be a brother.
I know, man.
But so obviously that's gonna drum up tons of fucking controversy.
Yeah.
You know,
where's that money gonna come from, right?
Where's that money gonna come from? And why should we be responsible for something from so long ago and this and that? And the reality of it is, and this is something I was watching the other day, it was just talking about like the value of slave labor and how that is literally the reason America is the superpower that it is today. You had basically like fucking free labor for like 200 years and at that time you were like, at that time you were probably the biggest international exporter, or we grew into that. I think China obviously has, taken over that shit, but like a lot of this country was built on the backs of fucking slaves, you know what I mean?
That's
like
definitely true.
they built the White House and shit, like physically actually built the White House. So when you think of it from that standpoint, when they start to like put like a dollar value on slavery and like what it did and how many billions of dollars that workforce was worth at that time, then you start to think of it less of like this population, forget, you should let it go, move on. It's like no, there's like actual value in the hours, fucking all the people that died, worked, whatever, and there's like a true representation of that now, and the crazy thing is like the further you break that down and you look at like how like I don't know, like I can't speak for every single minority group and how it was affected, like how it affected each group, but like up until this from taking the same classes that I take related to the mortgage laws and civil rights laws. I think it's like 1978. There was still like redlining rules. Still like steering rules where people weren't selling black people homes. Probably the same thing for Latin or Latino. You know what I mean? Like people in certain neighborhoods saying like,
steer them into their own community only.
No, we're not selling to this person and shit. So like when you think about like not being able to participate in American equity growth for the last fucking however many years after being freed from slavery, that's like another like, hey, you helped build this shit, but then you're not going to participate. And it was, someone said it like when you talk about like, because a lot of things like that are said, it's like, like black people are like Richard Fenn talks about this shit. It's like black people are, on the bottom of the scale related to finances compared to this or that. And I'm like, I don't know all the facts and truth related to all that information, but I know generally speaking where he's kind of coming from with that. But someone kind of like put it like, well, if you had a a 400-year head start, you know. And I don't like to look at it like people versus people and shit, but when you just think of like populations, like, okay, why is this group maybe suffering from a certain thing in their community versus this other community, you know?
Yeah, I mean that I could definitely see because you think about it. Yeah, I mean the years they've been enslaved, where another type of race was far advanced than them, and then now all of a sudden you abolish slavery. Well, all those years they're so far behind in education and just knowing how to like just fend for themselves and things like that, how to grow. That's going to affect not only them but their future generation, and it's going to take a while to finally get out of it. You're probably barely seeing it now with the last, I don't know, 20, 30 years, whatever it is, where now people are starting to advance. So I definitely can see the whole reparation concept. I mean, if the country would have took care of them literally right afterwards, the debt probably wouldn't be as bad. I mean, they can take it, but now because they haven't done something over the years, well, rightfully so. Now they're they're entitled to like now to open their pockets up and pay that debt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, or something.
For sure.
Yeah, whether it's money or like you said, whether it's some kind of legislation, whether it's housing, whether it's education, something to help them out for sure. You know.
Yeah, man, you have to do it because like the shit that we see in certain culture, certain factions of culture, right? Because like I have like a wide perspective of what black people are, right? I'm sure just like you have a wide perspective of like Latinos, Mexican, like however you want to categorize that. But if you think of like the segment that like isn't doing well in that group or whatever, let's say gang culture or just like whatever poverty still exists, where there's still like in Compton or like areas of Los Angeles, you still have like massive tracts of like projects and like I've been in those environments and I feel like when I'm in those environments communicating with people that are in those environments, I almost feel like I'm back in the fucking 90s and shit, where it's like a limited access thing where where I'm coming from a perspective of like shit, like you could do whatever you want, you could move around, you could go to law school if you want, just get a fucking student loan and pay for it, pay that shit back later. You could do, but that's because I have access to this information. I'm seeing people that are doing it. I know an uncle that's an engineer. I have a friend that has a master's degree. I have this and this and that. But if you're in a segment of if you're greater population around you, even if you see shit on TV or on the computer, it's like if the people around you aren't reinforcing that shit's like actually available, then you're gonna kind of stay within your, a lot of times, So I feel like that those populations are there, and they probably been there since they. You know what I mean? Like those those sections of the community that are still struggling or still dealing with high violence and shit. That's just they've been there. You know what I mean? Like they've been dealing with that.
Sure.
And the only way you're gonna fix it is really getting to the grassroots of it. And it's a lot of access. It's like information, funds. Having access to funds will change a lot of shit for a lot of people. You know what I mean? Like when you can actually be wise enough or not desperate enough to actually make a clear decision, as opposed to like, okay, like, all right, you know what? I have enough money to fucking stay in a decent place that I'm comfortable in and work towards a certain goal, as opposed to like, I live in a shithole. I can't really see myself getting out of it. Let me figure out the best thing that I can do right here and the easiest, quickest way to make some bread tonight. Or, you're thinking in like a very like shorter circle as opposed to like I have time to kind of figure this out. Like like fucking people are thinking about younger people around them dying. And I think about that shit too. And like this is like a little bit on a different topic, but I actually thought about that. And I think that we get a little bit desensitized to like shit that happens. But like by no means did I grow up in like the fucking ghetto, you know what I mean? Like I think we grew up like in an area where it's like we were close enough to shit. We knew shit was going on, shit, we were intermingled with shit, but it wasn't like we were in the projects where like, let's say Olive Street fucking down there and shit, we're in that little small section and shit, But like even within that, I knew people that were fucking teenagers that got killed and shit, So it's like just like thinking about like psychologically what that can do to you. If I think if you're a strong, well thought out person, you could deal with a lot of shit and kind of be able to balance it out. But imagine you don't have like a strong upbringing and you're seeing shit like that happen. it's fucking really kind of stunt your growth, you know?
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to, like you said, the access, right? I mean, and really we get a lot of our knowledge from what our parents.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
so you want to ask what access do they have, what opportunities do they have,
Exactly.
and their parents, and vice versa. So it goes back down into, like,
For
you
sure.
realize, like, man, they had very limited access over the years. So now, you know, you have to, like, try to really work hard and figure out how to get that access available now to you. And I think our generation, I think we're figuring that out now. So where our kids are growing up, they're gonna see all that and growing up. But yeah, for us, we're learning kind of the hard way. My parents learned the hard way. You know, they just taught us just to be blue collar workers, go to work, don't necessarily waste money on school,
Right.
and just work to your 65 or 70 and call it a life.
Right.
You know, and that's how the system is kind of set up for, like, a lot of minorities. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I feel that way too. Where, like, you know, if we were just taught a certain way, you know, how to really just get out of that mentality,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we can definitely grow. You know,
For sure.
But
Exactly.
yeah, man. So yeah, I mean, that's how I look at it now. Yeah, I don't want to, like, necessarily dwell on what opportunities I didn't have. I just gotta look at, like, what can I create now, even my time in my life, so that way my son can definitely reap those benefits and grow. And same thing, obviously, with your family too. So for sure, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where I think to wrap it all in, I think that's where the reparations come in. It's like some people think of it like, oh, you're just giving money away, and it's like, money fucking is a life changer. Money's a game changer. There's obviously going to be someone that does some ignorant shit, you know, like,
Yeah,
that gets
yeah.
funds and they do the wrong thing. But I think the vast majority of people will use that shit to create stability, to create opportunity,
Yeah.
you know, and grow there. But yeah, I think that's really what it comes down to, you know, like being able to share, besides funds, fucking access information, kind of
Yeah.
forcing it into the community, right? As opposed to only being like you said, working class. Like, we're taught to, you know, get a good job. I think that we're like part of the generation where our parents they worked a job, able to buy a house or able to get into a house and kind of support us, but then they want it better, so they pushed us towards college. You know, they're like, oh, get a college degree that'll get you further along. When maybe, you know, like the next generation, the concept is like, all right, college is cool too, but how are you going to create a higher income for yourself? Make sure you're choosing the right field in college. Make sure you're also thinking about investment, you know?
Yeah,
So
that's
it's like
the next layer of stuff, right? You know what I mean?
It's a progression, you know what
Yeah,
I mean? But
sure.
but the reality of it is that, you know, when you think of like imbalances in communities, it's like shit, like you're gonna you know, you're gonna be able to say, okay, hey, look, like with your son, you're gonna try to advise him as a young person to be like, hey, shit, why don't you? You're 22, you got a decent job. How about you try to figure out how to get on a loan with you and your homie, and then rent out the other room in the place, and, you know, like, spark them at like 22, 23 with like,
for sure.
you know, so. But that's the shit that other people have been doing, you know, and have had the ability to do, because they're like, oh shit, we bought this house in the 70s, 0 down, or, you know, like, whatever the case is, and we're able to pass it down. So now you at 25, 30 years old already have a couple $100,000 in equity somewhere.
Yeah.
Really hard to fall off from there unless you're fucking, you know,
Yeah.
like, have some real problems in your life, you know. But I think that's really what it's all about, you know.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if that bill can get passed through. What's going to definitely help out, you know, after just kind of hearing what you touched base on right now about just kind of elaborating more about reparation, the history, what kind of was going on with slavery. Yeah, man, I agree. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, you know, like, whether it's money or whether it's some kind of other opportunity, you know, I definitely believe that something you know should be done to help out.
For sure.
To kind of level up the playing field a little bit. You know what I mean?
That's
so,
what it's about.
and just put closure on things like that, so that way we can just move on. You know what I mean?
Exactly. You can't ever expect for there to ever be like a cohesive kind of like community in the country when there's so many wrongs that are not, you know, righted. You know, or, that's not the proper way to say it, but, you know, there's shit that needs to be kind of like touched on, addressed, fixed, and then you push forward and understand that it doesn't just go away. You kind of like continue to grow it because you actually care. You actually give a shit about how people feel and how people are like having, like, what their experience is in life. Not just like, okay, they're pawns, we got to keep them down, we got to keep them from fucking coming up, we got to, you know, it's got to be like, you got to see your position becomes more stable when other people have a stable position, as opposed to like, shit, keep pissing them off, they're just gonna raid your house. You know what I mean? Like, they're gonna figure out a way, they're gonna scam you to death. You know what I mean? Like, you're always gonna have to deal with this population of people that, rightfully so, probably feel underserved and don't give a fuck about your rules, as opposed to bring them into the shit, you know, make everyone kind of get on the same playing field, like you're saying. But yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. I think that, like, it's not only black people, descendants of slaves. I think any population that's been underserved, it needs to be addressed. You know, maybe it wasn't slavery, but maybe it was just like your schools have been fucked up for the last 60 years, you know, which in turn is going to make it to where your job prospects suck.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, like all that shit matters. And I think that the better we do at like kind of addressing that, the more, you know, happiness our population could have and shit, less stress. And
hopefully, man. Hopefully, we look forward to seeing what the outcome of that one is.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, man. So the other thing that was in the news that was pretty crazy was over the last week or so, or maybe longer, 2 weeks, was that whole shit that happened in Boston. The Ime Udoka, the coach there.
Oh, for the Celtics, you're saying?
Yeah. So like it came out a couple weeks ago that, you know, the main thing that came out was that they were suspending him for a whole year. And you get like these reactions from all over the spectrum of like, you know, Stephen A. Smith immediately came out, this is discrimination.
Oh, I'm sorry to cut you off. Would you mind just kind of summarizing, you know, for the viewers that don't know, you know, kind of what kind of transpired?
Okay, so Ime Udoka, he's he was a rookie last year as the coach of the Celtics. In his rookie year, he took them all the way to the finals. Okay. A couple games away from winning the championship. Which for a coach, you know, for any coach, that's a great thing. But for a rookie, that's fucking amazing, right? Like that normally doesn't happen. So obviously he has like a lot of pull. He's a coach that he was an assistant coach for the Spurs for many years, you know. So he comes up under Greg Popovich. So he has like a great track record, you know. But, you know, they suspended him because he had some improper relationships that went against the organization policy. So at first, when that first came out, and
dipped his hand in the cookie jar, huh?
Dipped his hands in the cookie jar, and first when it came out, it was like you of course get like the perspective from like a lot of like, you know, I don't want to say, well, let's just say media pundits like Stephen A. Smith that came out immediately like acting as if it was like an unjust thing. Mm-hmm. Like, just for having a consensual relationship, whether it's cheating or not, you know, suspending him for a whole year, you know, he was basically implying that it was like some racial shit, you know, like he was being mistreated. And then like Matt Barnes, he came out and said some shit like pretty quickly, like, you know, that was like kind of suggesting that it was too much of a punishment. It was,
right.
You know, so like you had a bunch of people kind of come to his defense, and then shortly after that, Matt Barnes pulled back. I guess he found out further information about what was going on, and he pulled back his statement and was like, okay, well, it's a lot worse than what I thought. So the whole story...
Don't you wish people would do that and find all the facts before they start, you know...
Yeah.
Speaking their piece.
Yeah, or at least like when you're speaking your piece, like keep it in context or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, like he came out and he went hard, but then he detracted it later on and kind of said that he spoke too soon.
Oh, okay.
But the whole thing is that turns out that he's had relationships with multiple women within the organization. One of the women supposedly was the assistant of one of the president. You remember Brad? Is his last name Brad Smith? He was the coach for Butler that became Boston's coach. And I don't know what happened where he didn't want to remain the coach, but he now is like the president of the company. So it was obviously like a promotion for him or whatever. But he's the president now, and I guess supposedly one of the chicks was his assistant. He's like, if anyone's gonna be in her, it's gonna be me. No, I'm joking. But supposedly it was his assistant, and supposedly the other female or woman that he had an affair with was the wife of I guess it's a consultant. He's a consultant for the Boston Celtics, and his wife works for the Boston Celtics, and she's like the travel coordinator for the team.
Oh wow! Okay.
It says she was also coordinating travel for the wives, you know, of the team. So she was actually setting up travel for Nia Long.
His
wife.
Yeah,
like, hey, look, she's gonna be in town now. She's gonna be and so at this current moment, he is suspended for a year, and a lot of people don't know if he's gonna come back. But
and who's Nia Long again?
Nia Long, yeah, she is. You know, she's a actress that was, you know, I think the 90s were her heyday, you know what I mean? But she's been known as like a very like beautiful woman.
Right.
She's definitely taking care of herself. She's like, I think she's 51, but she still looks really good.
Oh wow, she's that old.
Yeah, she was like probably 25 or 30 on Friday or whatever. But yeah, she's a really attractive woman. So she has like that reputation of like, you know, like Holly Berry and shit.
Right,
you know?
right. So he did not only cheat on a woman that's just a regular woman that's not in, you know, any kind of show, but he cheated on her.
Yeah.
Like an actress. Basically.
Yeah, an actress that people kind of like
Recognize.
adore.
Yeah,
Yeah, and they're like,
yeah.
she's beautiful. Why would you
Yeah.
do that? You know. So yeah, man, he's looking like the fuck up of the year right now. You know what I mean? Like to put your man parts in front of like all that shit. Like, like for one, you're in an organization. Like for one, like if you're in a power position, you can't be messing around with the staff for one. But then, you know, like. Yeah, and like someone that's dealing with your wife, and you know, I don't know all the details and shit, but what do you think? What's your outlook on that?
I guess I can see why Boston went so hard on him, because obviously when they got all the facts and the allegations came out, I mean, shit, it looks just bad on the team itself. So I guess they had to come pretty hard, showing that they're not going to tolerate this, regardless whoever it is, right? So
right.
I guess that makes sense as to why they went pretty hard on him, man, because they don't want to leave that. If they would have went soft, then they would have probably, you know, got some grief from other people or other stations about, you know, how they maybe can tolerate things like this too.
Right.
So yeah, man, it's crazy, man. You know, when you have some power, man, some people just have to take advantage of it, you know. So
dude, that's insane.
Yeah.
You know, people were some other podcasts that I was kind of listening to, they were like, you know, to do that and to risk all that you're risking.
Yeah.
They're like, this dude must have a sex addiction. You know what I mean? Like you're really in a position where, for one, like you can't fuck up at all. That's almost like it's like you're in like this exalted position. You're on the way to potentially probably winning a championship this year if you guys keep it together and you guys kind of stay on that trajectory. And that's like fucking. Well, it's like getting caught cheating, or it's like getting caught doing something that's just dumb, like you're stealing something, or like you know, something that just didn't have to happen. And then on top of that, you're putting your wife in the shit. You're dragging her through the mud, making her look stupid.
It probably would have been a lot lenient if it was just a player.
For sure.
But because he's a leader of the team, and you know, he plays a big role. I think that's another reason why they came hard. Because you hear accusations come out over the years of players doing stuff, you know, adultery and stuff like that too. So you know, it kind of rubs off, because you the media kind of expects that to happen when you're an athlete or a movie star,
right?
You know, to be surrounded by women, regardless.
And to be like immature enough to kind of fall to it.
Yeah.
You know, you don't get as much flack like Tristan Thompson or some shit. Like,
correct.
It's like, okay, you're an asshole, but no one's talking about your contract. No one's talking about cutting you from the team and shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like that shit is like, it's definitely like one of those things like terrible judgment and very unfortunate, but like I look at it like as a man, you know, and I'm looking at it through his psychology. I'm just like, fuck, bro, like you couldn't, like that's how I think of like a lot of things in my life and shit. Like how would this look if this shit didn't go the right way to my kids and to my wife, or you know, whatever. Yeah. Like I always use the example of like going to TJ and shit, you know, like TJ's a crazy place, right? There's a lot of things you could do in TJ,
to say the least, man.
To say the least, right? Yeah. So I'm like even if like the concept is going on there just to have some fun and shit, I'm like, do I want to fucking my kids to be like, yeah, my dad died in TJ or something? You know, like I make my decisions.
My dad's in jail because he's at a brothel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my dad got arrested at a brothel in TJ or some shit, you know, or even like, you know, I have a history as a graffiti artist, and like there's always that urge as a graffiti artist to go out and paint the town red and shit, you know?
Wrong place, buddy.
Yeah, I'm like, fucking, do you want to be sitting in jail, like fucking talking about how you got arrested for some, you know? So it's like the same shit. You got to really take your steps in life as if like, are you okay with everyone fucking knowing this? Especially when you're in a public role like that.
Yeah.
Especially when people are counting on you. And what I was going to say was that like my wife was like, why would they suspend him for a year? And this, I'm like, I think it's partially because like as a head coach, you're kind of looked at as like like once you're a head coach and you're winning, people start looking at you through like a very intelligent standpoint. They're like, this person's fucking playing chess. They're really like sharp, and then you do some dumb shit like that. You lose so much credibility that I don't really think you can walk through the organization and demand that same sort of respect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like your young players that are probably not cheating on their fucking girlfriends are gonna look at you like, damn, bro, you really let your dick fucking kind of fuck up what we had going and shit, you know?
And at the same time, if they would have given him a minimal punishment, for example, you know, I think it would be, the team would be under a magnifying glass where they'd be always in the media. It could be a distraction. Mm-hmm. So they have to kind of get him out of that to kind of take away the distraction. Hope they say, well, okay, we'll give him a year. By that time, whatever crap he went through is gone. You know, it's all about the team now. You know what I mean? So I think they had to do that, you know, because, you know, otherwise the media's going to question him every single time after a game about shit like that, and they're going to ask other players. That's going to lose their focus, and next you know, that's going to be the reason why they're not winning now.
For sure.
Yeah,
so do you think that was a good decision to like cut him for a year? Do you think that he's actually coming back after that year?
Man, I don't know. I mean, I would say he'll probably come back. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, he's an asshole outside of things, but he's still proven to win. So, you know, as long as he continues to win, I think, you know, eventually it's just gonna go away. You know.
So yeah. We'll see, man. I think that like I think that from what I've heard, the little shit that I've heard, I think that you can't obviously have him as a coach right now. You have to suspend him. If they like him enough, he'll probably be back. You know, if he has like a good rapport within the organization, that might, you know, it might work. But hey, look, I'm just gonna say this, and I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but at the same time, I don't give a shit. But
man,
you don't want, if you're a fucking organization of white dudes, right? I don't really know how much you like the idea of some black dude walking around slaying all the fucking chicks, like slaying your assistant, smashing this chick. You know what I mean? Like, you would have to be a very non-biased person, and not like, hopefully they are that way. You know what I mean? Like, I would appreciate that. I'd be like, okay, like they're just looking at him like, this guy made some mistakes. He's a smart guy overall. We're gonna let this mistake be the mistake, and it is what it is. People make mistakes, right?
Yeah, because they could have fired him probably too, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So like maybe they could really look at it through that lens. But on the petty side, like the bullshit side, they're probably like, fuck this motherfucker. Hey, look, I don't even like, if I'm running a company, you know, I'm going to be looking at the guy walking around smashing my assistant a certain way. I'm like, bro, keep your dick in your pants. Like, hey, look, man, you got to smash her too? Like, you know? And it wasn't just like one chick. It was like the guy's assistant, the fucking VP consultant's wife and shit. People were like, hey, you might fucking smash my wife next. You know what I mean? Like, you know, not really, but maybe it's just like, it's kind of like if you're the chick that's smashing all the chicks' husband. You know what I mean? Like, or you're in the organization and you're that sex spot fucking rolling around. It might just not be a good look, even if you could still win, even if you know, people might just not like that shit, you know?
True.
Might be enough to be like they're at the bar one day like, fuck that dude, bro. Thinks he's fucking so hard, you know? Like,
but on the flip side, you know, that guy's probably on pins and needles and shit like that, where like, you know, it might be a reality check, like, oh, I can't go this shit again. I'm really gonna damage myself if I go through this again and get caught, and you know, for sure, I'm probably gonna be out of the league after that. You know what I mean? So
for sure.
So I think he'll learn his lesson, man. I think, you know, he knows he fucked up, but at the same time, I mean, you know, he'll have a whole year to think about shit.
Yeah.
He needs to worry about getting his shit straight with his wife first, though, man.
Ooh, yeah.
You know, she's probably gonna take him for what he's worth.
Dude, well, they're not married, right?
They're not married.
I thought
yeah. Oh well.
So I don't know if he's gonna be able to keep her, because like, even like, I think when it's public, it's hard. You know what I mean? Like, 'cause there's an embarrassing aspect to it.
And she's an actress, top it off. So she's
her brand.
Too.
She has a brand, and now her brand is kind of tarnished because you've been cheated on, and you like, for a woman.
And if you keep him too. Dang.
Yeah, you know, it's hard to keep a cheater and shit and not look like fucking soft and kind of, you know, like weak and shit. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's hard enough from anybody just to tolerate what has happened, right? I mean, because it's always gonna be back in your mind that, hey, this guy's cheating on me. But top it off, you have a following, you have a name, you have recognition, that you have to deal with all that outside noise. So whatever decision you make, you're gonna get crap on it to a certain degree too. You know.
And you have a kid.
Yeah, so I feel bad for her, man.
Oh, dude, I feel bad for her. Yeah, because it's like, even if she really wants to, like, hey, look, I forgive you. I understand shit happens and shit. It's like she does have to deal with that public side of it where, like that, like just think about it from your perspective or my perspective. If like something happened between me and my wife and shit, it's like you as an individual could decide, hey, look, I'm cool, I forgive you on that, but it's like, fuck, like now I gotta fucking deal with how everyone else is gonna look at me related to this shit. And you know, the stronger person you are, you could do that shit, but I think for anyone it would be a challenge, you know what I mean?
For sure,
you're gonna
for
be
sure.
be dealing with that shit. But yeah, we'll see how that all plays out. I think that like for her it's gonna be hard to stay, especially if you're not married yet.
Yeah.
You know, if you're already married, maybe it's like, okay, we're here, let's try to figure this out, let's go to counseling. But you're engaged. This dude pulled some fucking shady shit like that. It was already known, like it already came out that he was cheating, but it hadn't come out publicly. And he was still setting you up to move to Boston, supposedly, right? Like it was like supposedly shit came out, like where he was aware that it had come out in July, and supposedly she was still like fucking looking for houses and shit like that in August or whatever, you know?
Oh wow, okay.
Something like that, you know what I mean? But it's just like, that has to sting, and you know, but people move over shit, people get over shit, and I don't really know if it's hard to be like, well, I hope that they work out. It's like, fuck, like, bro, you kind of fucked up, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and what's a better career move for her? Like, staying with him? Does she look like the strong woman that sticks by her man?
I guess if I was in her shoes, I probably would just call it quits. I think just from my own personal well-being, I couldn't tolerate myself because I'm always, you know, besides the outside public, just for me to deal with it, what's going on, and it's been going on for a period of time. How long? Do you know how long?
I don't know how long it was going on.
It's probably going on for a while. It's like months, probably. You know, because I think you told me that you know, one of the girls was the consultant, right? The travel consultant.
Exactly.
And then she would even like tailor her travel, the wife's travel, for him too. So he was kind of calculated how he done shit too, man. So
what a dirtbag.
You know, so yeah, man. I don't think I can get over it myself. You know, I think I would part ways myself. You know.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and I think the way that it got exposed, like at least initially, was that the lady, or at least one of the chicks, was like at home, or she was like, she had got to her house and she was having a conversation on her phone in front of her Ring camera. And her Ring camera fucking recorded the shit, and her husband...
That's right, I remember hearing about that. That's what it was, yeah.
He must have got a notification and he's watching that shit like, this bitch, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's like fucking shit, man. You can't be doing that shit.
Shit's gonna come around, bro.
Shit's gonna come around. You gotta be smarter than that.
Yeah.
But hey, man, he probably is a sex addict. but anyways, man, yeah, shit. Lost our other camera, so we'll say peace out through that one. But hey, man, thanks for tapping in with us. Listen to some convo. Like, subscribe. Tell us how you feel about Kanye. Tell us how you feel about White Lives Matter. Tell us how you feel about IME Udoka and all the shit. What are your thoughts on that? Drop a comment, like and subscribe. Check back with us. Have a good day. We'll see you.
Peace.
All right.
This shit's going forever, fool.
Yeah, dude.
I was gonna tell you about the AB scandal.